When you play a video game, there is almost always that one cheat code you hunt for right away. The one I am talking about.
Oh, definitely. The
Yeah.
infinite health glitch, or like the bottomless inventory cheat.
Exactly. You punch in a specific sequence of buttons, and suddenly, well, the normal punishing rules of the game just do not apply to you anymore. You stop merely surviving the mechanics of the game, and you actually start playing and enjoying the open world.
Yeah, and that changes everything about how you interact with your environment. The foundational anxiety of running out of resources is completely lifted.
Right.
So you take more risks, you explore further, and the entire experience becomes incredibly comforting rather than, stressful.
Think about what it would mean to have an equivalent to that infinite health glitch, but in real-world personal finance.
Oh, wow, that would be something.
Right. A way to set up your money so that the standard rules of depletion, the terrifying idea that you will outlive your savings, just seem to stop applying. Today's deep dive is about unlocking exactly that.
It's a fascinating topic.
It really is. It is a financial strategy that legitimately feels like a cheat code for retirement. Or, honestly, just for whenever you decide you want to stop trading your time for a paycheck.
We are looking at a concept that fundamentally challenges a lot of our basic, ingrained assumptions about how savings are supposed to work.
Yeah, because most of us are taught that you build a pile of money, and then you slowly, anxiously eat away at that pile until you die, just, hoping the pile outlasts you.
Which is incredibly stressful.
Exactly. So, we are drawing our insights today from a really comprehensive, fascinating breakdown by financial educator Sagar Sinha.
He's great at breaking these complex topics down.
He really is. He outlines the mechanics of something called an SWP, or systematic withdrawal plan. The mission of this deep dive is to understand the actual mechanics of how this strategy operates.
Because he essentially describes it as getting a fixed monthly salary without having a job, drawn from a bank account that theoretically never empties.
Which sounds insane. Okay, let's unpack this.
So to really grasp the mechanics of the systematic withdrawal plan, or SWP, we first need to put it in context by contrasting it with a tool that you, as the listener, are probably already very familiar with, the SIP, or systematic investment plan.
Right, the SIP, that is the accumulation phase.
Exactly.
Let me try to visualize this because the terminology can get, a little dry. It's like planting an apple tree.
Okay, I like that.
An SIP, the systematic investment plan, is the years and years you spend watering the sapling, fertilizing the soil, putting in the hard work while the tree slowly grows.
Right.
And then the SWP, the systematic withdrawal plan, is what happens when that tree is fully grown. You stop watering it so aggressively and you just start picking the apples. You never chop the wood, you just take the fruit, so the tree keeps growing and producing more apples than you can eat.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The tree remains intact while providing sustenance.
Yeah.
Sagar Sinha uses a very similar, very striking analogy in his own explanation. He asks you to imagine you have a giant bucket of water. This represents your fully funded investment corpus.
Okay, a giant bucket.
An SWP is like dipping a mug into that bucket every single month to pull out the water you need to live on. But here's the massive catch. Instead of the water level in the bucket dropping over time because you keep removing water, the water level actually rises.
Which sounds like magic. Or, an outright violation of the laws of physics. If I take water out, there should be less water.
It absolutely sounds like magic, but it is pure mathematics.
Okay.
He explains that an SWP is primarily designed for when you hit 50 or 60, or simply whenever you reach a point where you no longer want to rely on active daily labor.
Right, the retirement dream.
Exactly. It provides a fixed monthly income that is mathematically designed to last your entire life. And it goes far beyond just your life, actually.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If set up and managed correctly, this bucket can pass down to 3 or 4 future generations without the principal ever running dry.
That is just wild to think about. And I really love how he addresses the elephant in the room regarding how you get that initial giant bucket of water, too.
Oh, yeah, the lump sum.
Right, because to dip a mug in, you have to start with a serious lump sum, a major corpus. He lists a few ways you might acquire this initial fund.
Right, like building it up slowly and painfully through decades of SIPs.
Yeah, or maybe you get a large pension payout when you leave a career. Maybe you sell off a piece of inherited land, or, you get lucky and win the lottery.
He even jokingly warns that you could resort to dacoity.
which is armed robbery.
Yeah, to get the lump sum. Though he is very quick to clarify that a life of crime is a terrible financial plan.
Just to be clear, yes, do not do that.
Right. But the mathematical engine of the SWP does not care about the origin story of your funds, assuming they are acquired legally, of course.
Naturally.
The compounding math works the exact same way regardless of how the bucket was filled.
So I want you, the listener, to pause and really imagine this scenario. Imagine you have managed to build a corpus of, say, 1 crore. And just to ground the numbers, for anyone unfamiliar with the South Asian numbering system, 1 crore is 10 million rupees, or let's say a smaller goal of 50 lakhs, which is 5 million rupees.
Yep.
What would it actually feel like if taking cash out of that account every single month to pay your rent, buy your groceries, and fund your life didn't actually deplete the total balance you saw on the screen?
Reaching that point requires a massive mental shift.
Oh, absolutely.
From childhood, we are conditioned to believe that spending equals shrinking. You buy a candy bar, your piggy bank gets lighter. To understand how spending can mathematically equal growing, we have to look under the hood at the exact numbers Sinha provides.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's get into the actual math, the specific formula that makes this magic trick work.
Let's walk through the core calculation. First, we have to establish the environment. We are assuming this lump sum is invested in the stock market, specifically in a diversified index fund.
Okay, so it's not just sitting in a regular savings account.
Exactly. Now, looking at historical data over long timelines, these types of funds can return 12 to 15% annually.
Which is a solid return.
It is. But to be safe, to build a highly conservative model that can weather a few storms, the source material bases all its calculations on a mere 10% annual growth.
And 10% is a very reasonable, very grounded expectation for a long-term broad market index fund. It is not an overly optimistic pipe dream.
No, not at all. So, with that 10% growth engine established, we arrive at the golden rule of the SWP.
The secret sauce.
Exactly. This is the absolute non-negotiable formula to make the bucket overflow instead of drain you. You only withdraw 5% of your total starting corpus annually.
5% a year, which, if we break that down to a monthly salary that we can actually use to pay monthly bills, is roughly 0.5% per month.
That is the magic number, 0.5% monthly. Let's apply this to a real-world scenario, because hearing the percentages is one thing, but tracking the actual currency is staggering.
Yeah, let's do the math.
Let's assume you have that 1 crore corpus, 10 million rupees. You follow the strict rule and set up an automatic withdrawal of 0.5% monthly. That means you're getting 50,000 rupees deposited into your checking account on the first of every single month without fail.
Okay, let me track this mentally. 50,000 rupees a month means that in year 1, I have withdrawn a total of 6,600,000 rupees.
Correct.
Now, my brain tells me, based on basic subtraction, that my initial 1 crore should now be 94 lakhs. I started with 100 parts, I took away 6 parts, I should have 94 parts left.
And that is the linear thinking that trips people up. Because of that underlying 10% growth engine we discussed, your money was not just sitting in a vault.
Right, it was working.
Exactly. While you were taking out your 6 lakhs over the course of the year, the fund was actively compounding. By the end of year 1, your balance has not dropped to 94 lakhs. It has actually grown to 1 crore and 3 lakhs.
Wait, I took out 6 lakhs to live my life, I paid my bills, I went on vacation, and I am still richer on December 31st than I was on January 1st.
Yes. The fund generated more in returns than you extracted in income.
That is wild.
Now, let's fast forward a bit. Let's look at year 5. You have been pulling out your 50,000 rupees every single month, like absolute clockwork.
Living the good life.
Right. You have withdrawn a total of 30 lakhs over those 5 years. What do you think the balance is?
Well, if I started at 1 crore and I've taken out almost a third of that 30 lakhs, even with some growth, I feel like I should be hovering right around my initial 1 crore, maybe just slightly under.
Your balance at the end of year 5 is 1 crore 22 lakhs.
This is wild. Okay, let's push it to the extreme then. Let's look at year 30. I've been retired for 3 entire decades. I haven't worked a day in 30 years. I've been taking out 50,000 every single month.
By year 30, the amount of cash you have withdrawn to live on totals an incredible 1 crore 80 lakhs. You have extracted almost double your initial investment.
Okay, I've taken out 1.8 crores. My original bucket was only 1 crore. In a normal linear world, I am bankrupt. I owe the bank 80 lakhs. What does the SWP compounding math say I have left in the account to pass down to my kids?
Your remaining balance is 7 crore 13 lakhs.
I'm sorry, what? I put in 1 crore. I took out 1.8 crores to live my entire adult life, and my children are inheriting over 7 crores.
What's fascinating here is witnessing the sheer relentless power of compound interest when it is allowed to outpace a fixed withdrawal rate over a long horizon.
It's just staggering.
Because you are strictly only taking out 5% a year, but the fund is growing at an average of 10%, the principal continues to compound upon itself. The growth of the growth vastly exceeds what you are sipping from the top.
It literally is an infinite money glitch. To go back to my analogy, you're just picking the apples, but the tree is growing new branches so fast that every year there are more apples, and the tree itself is 7 times larger than when you planted it.
It forms a completely self-sustaining ecosystem. But, and this is the most crucial part of the entire deep dive, it only remains self-sustaining if you respect the mathematical balance of that ecosystem.
Okay, I am going to push back here. Because human nature is incredibly greedy, and my own brain is doing this math right now.
Oh, I know where this is going.
If I am looking at my portfolio and I see my account is growing at an average of 10% a year, well, why on earth am I restricting myself to only taking out 5%? Why not withdraw the full 10%?
That is the big question.
Right. If I have 1 crore, 10% growth means it's generating 10 lakhs a year, which is around 80,000 or 90,000 rupees a month. Why leave so much money on the table just to build a massive 7 crore inheritance for great-grandchildren who aren't even born yet?
It's tempting, isn't it?
Very. Why not just break even, take the full 80,000, and live a much more luxurious life right now?
That temptation is universal. It is the exact trap so many people fall into, and it leads us directly into a concept that financial planners call sequence of returns risk.
Sequence of returns risk. Okay.
Yes, the reason you cannot simply withdraw 10%, even if the average growth is 10%, is because the stock market is not a machine.
Right. It doesn't just hand you a neat, flat 10% check on January 1st every single year like a savings account might.
Exactly. The market is highly volatile. One year, it might give you a fantastic 15% return. The next year, it might give you a sluggish 5%.
And sometimes it drops.
Crucially, inevitably, you will hit a terrible economic stretch, a recession, a global event where the market gives you negative returns for 2, 3, or even 4 years in a row.
Ah, I see. So it's like driving a car on a really bumpy, unpredictable dirt road. That extra 5% you purposely leave in the account, the difference between the 10% average growth and your 5% withdrawal, that money acts as your financial shock absorber.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
Right.
If you do not have that shock absorber built in, a deep market pothole will completely destroy the vehicle.
Which means you go broke.
Right. Let's look at the failure state Sagar Sinha explicitly warns about, what he calls the 1% trap. Let's say you get greedy. You have your 1 crore, and you decide you want 1 lakh a month, 100,000 rupees to live on. That is a 1% monthly withdrawal, equating to 12% annually.
Which honestly feels totally doable if the market has a booming year and goes up 15 or 20%. You feel like a financial genius.
Oh, in a bull market, you absolutely feel like a genius. But remember the mechanics of an SWP. Your withdrawal rate is fixed in terms of currency.
Right.
You need that 1 lakh in cash every single month to pay your elevated lifestyle bills, regardless of what the underlying market is doing. If the market crashes by 20%, the value of your portfolio shrinks significantly, but you're still demanding 1 lakh in cash from it.
So mechanically, to get that 1 lakh in cash out of a depressed market, the fund manager has to sell off a much larger percentage of your actual underlying shares because those shares are currently cheaper.
Exactly. You are forced to sell low. You're eating directly into the principal. You're literally chipping away at the plastic of the bucket just to get your sip of water.
If I chop the wood off the apple tree to build a fire, that branch can never grow an apple again.
That is exactly what happens. And once you destroy the principal, it is no longer there to compound and grow when the market eventually recovers.
Ouch.
The math in the source material is brutal on this point. If you withdraw just 1% monthly, factoring in normal historical market fluctuations and down years, your entire 1 crore corpus will be completely wiped out, down to zero, in about 15 to 16 years.
Wow. Think about that swing. You go from having infinitely regenerating wealth that leaves 7 crores for your grandchildren to being completely broke and destitute at age 75, simply because you took 1 lakh a month instead of 50,000.
The margins between infinite wealth and total ruin are that tight. Even withdrawing 70,000 a month from a 1 crore corpus carries a significant mathematical risk of ruin if you happen to be unlucky and hit a bad sequence of returns early in your retirement.
So you really can't mess with the formula.
No. Sticking rigidly to the 0.5% monthly rule is the only mathematical way to guarantee the shock absorber is thick enough to survive the bumpy road and continue growing indefinitely.
Okay, let's make this super concrete for the listener, no matter where they're starting. If your bucket is 50 lakhs, your maximum safe monthly salary is 25,000 rupees.
Yeah.
If your bucket is 25 lakhs, your monthly withdrawal is strictly 12,500.
All right, the 0.5% rule scales perfectly. You can apply it to a 10 lakh portfolio or a 10 crore portfolio.
Okay, looking at those numbers, my immediate thought is, I want this. I want this infinite health glitch.
Oh, for sure.
We've established the math, we know the rules of the game, but the obvious next hurdle is, how does an average person actually build that magical initial bucket? If I am listening to this and I want that 1 crore corpus to start my SWP, how do I actually get there if I don't have a massive inheritance or a winning lottery ticket sitting around?
Well, this is where we loop back to the sweat equity phase, this SIP, the systematic investment plan. The source material provides exact, actionable timelines to reach these specific goals.
Okay, lay it on me.
Now, during the accumulation phase, when you are putting money in, Sinha assumes a slightly more aggressive but still historically realistic 12% return.
Let's hear the timelines. If I'm starting from zero, how long is the grind to reach 1 crore?
It depends entirely on your monthly cash flow. If you can only manage to invest 5,000 rupees a month, but you do it consistently, month after month, for 30 years, you will reach roughly 1.5 crores.
Okay, 30 years is a massive chunk of time, but finding 5,000 a month is very accessible for a lot of people just starting out in their early 20s. It's playing the long game.
It requires extreme patience. Now, if you are a bit older, say 35, and you want to trigger your SWP by age 60, you only have 25 years.
Right.
To hit roughly 1 crore in a 25-year window, you need to increase your investment to 8,000 rupees a month.
Stepping it up, but still manageable if you prioritize it. What if I want to escape the rat race faster? What if I want to hit the goal in my early 50s?
If you can push your savings rate to 10,000 rupees a month, you cut the time down to about 23 years to hit 1 crore.
Wow, just 23 years.
And remember, if your goal is just 50 lakhs, which still gives you that guaranteed 25,000 a month lifelong income, you only need to invest 5,000 a month for 23 years.
That is incredibly encouraging because it makes the math feel, I don't know, democratic.
It really is.
But I also want to highlight an immediate, almost shocking application here. If you are listening to this and you already have a lump sum, maybe you just sold a starter home, or you received a life insurance payout, or you've just been diligently saving in cash for decades, you do not have to wait 20 years.
No, not at all. The timeline we just discussed is entirely about the burden of acquiring the corpus. If you happen to possess the corpus today, the SWP phase can technically start tomorrow morning.
You literally just open a Demat account, which, for anyone unfamiliar, is basically just a digital account that holds your financial securities and mutual funds. You pick a fund that allows systematic withdrawal plans, deposit your lump sum, set up the 0.5% monthly transfer to your standard bank checking account, and technically you could walk into your boss's office and quit.
That's the dream, right?
The infrastructure is just sitting there on the internet waiting to be utilized.
It really highlights how accessible these institutional-level financial tools have become for the average retail investor.
Truly.
However, Sagar Sinha is extremely careful to include a major caveat at the very end of his breakdown, and it is vital we explain why it matters.
Right, there's always a catch.
He warns that you cannot just pick any random mutual fund and expect this to work.
Yeah, he specifically says do not pick a third-class fund. But what does that actually mean? If the whole stock market goes up on average, shouldn't any fund work?
Well, the entire 0.5% rule relies on the assumption that your specific money will roughly track the overall upward compounding trajectory of the broad market.
Okay.
A third-class fund usually means an actively managed fund with extremely high expense ratios, meaning the managers charge you exorbitant fees just for the privilege of holding your money.
So even if the market grows 10%, the fund managers might be skimming 2 or 3% right off the top in fees before you even see it.
Exactly. Or worse, The active manager makes terrible stock picks, and your specific fund delivers negative returns during a year when the rest of the market is booming.
Oh, that would be painful.
If high fees and poor management are constantly dragging your returns down below that crucial 10% average, the SWP math falls apart. Those fees are essentially poking holes in the bottom of your bucket while you are trying to skim water off the top. Your bucket will drain.
So, careful fund selection, which usually means sticking to broad, incredibly low-cost index funds where you aren't paying a guy in a suit to guess which stocks will win, is the invisible pillar holding this entire infinite money strategy up.
Without a doubt, the mathematical strategy is bulletproof, but the specific vehicle you choose to execute it matters immensely.
So, what does this all mean for us?
Well, it's profound.
If we zoom out and distill everything we've unpacked today from Sagar Singh's masterclass, an SWP isn't just a convenient banking feature to move money from point A to point B.
Not at all.
It is fundamentally a self-replenishing, modern alternative to the traditional pension plans that our grandparents relied on, which barely exist anymore. It is a financial engine that, if respected and mathematically maintained, can outlast you and provide for generations of people you will never even meet.
And exploring this concept forces a profound question about how we view wealth and security.
How so?
We spend so much of our waking lives agonizing over how to hoard money, believing that a bigger pile is the only way to feel safe. But the mechanics of the SWP show us that true financial security isn't just about the brute force of how much you manage to save.
It's about strategy.
Right. It is equally, if not more so, about the mathematical strategy of how you systematically choose to spend it. A smaller corpus spent wisely via a 0.5% XWP offers vastly more security and longevity than a massive corpus spent recklessly.
It really is a paradigm shift. It completely changes the game. And it leaves me with this thought for you, the listener, to mull over as we wrap up today's deep dive.
I love this part.
We've spent the vast majority of our adult lives voluntarily trading our limited time for money. But if the underlying math of an SWP shows us that money can technically outlive you, endlessly regenerating for your great-grandchildren long after you are gone, does that change how you view your daily grind right now? If your bucket was somehow fully funded today and the plumbing was perfectly set up to deliver your 0.5% tomorrow, what would you actually choose to do with your time? Think about it. We'll see you on the next one.